Welcome to Customer Service Academy Radio with author and customer experience expert Tony Johnson. Tony will share his vision for successful customer service, leadership, and business excellence, and speak to some of the most impactful leaders in business today. And now, here's Tony Johnson.
Hello, everybody. Customer Service Academy is on the air. I'm Tony Johnson, your customer experience speaker, consultant, and trainer. Today's episode coming to you courtesy of Ignite Your Service Training and Consulting and 4XI Global Consulting and Solutions. Truly, better together. Folks, I have the most amazing summits coming up. We are going to have some destination workshops for your leadership development. Head on over to igniteyourservice.com/summits and check them out. We're going to have summits coming to Orlando, Lakeland, Tampa, and Las Vegas. Get on and register for more information today. They are going to be outstanding. All that said, though, we love to talk to folks who are getting it done. Today, we are welcoming Doug Brown onto the show. Doug is the CEO of CEO Sales Strategies. Over his career, Doug has founded or built, wait for this, more than 35 businesses and is the creator of a predictable, reliable, measurable model for revenue growth. He's helped businesses achieve remarkable outcomes, and this includes raising close rates by 143% and boosting sales by 4,000%. Now, that's not an extra zero, folks, 4,000%. Doug's latest venture, Vibitno, is a revolutionary sales automation software designed to increase sales and boost client retention and sales productivity. Doug, amazing to have you in the studio today.
Oh, Tony, thanks so much for having me here. I'm very grateful to be here.
It's going to be a great show. I'm really excited for it. So we always kick it off, and I love it because everyone has a different lens. It's like the what's your favorite food question. Everyone's got a different lens to this. So from your point of view, what makes a great customer experience?
A great customer experience is one where let me step back for a second. To me, a great customer experience is where they win, we win, and someone else wins. And, they walk away, they feel validated, valued, they got what they wanted, they solved their issues, or gained the opportunity. And, we win as well. And so now a relationship has been built, and we can continue to keep building upon that relationship in perpetuity. That to me is the ultimate experience.
Fantastic. Love that idea of building relationships, building foundations, building bridges. Such a great way to come at it. So when you think about it, what would you say are the qualities? If you were looking at teams, right? And I know that you're big into high performing teams. What are the qualities of a really great high performing team? What do you think makes up a great team like that? We've got a group of folks who listen. Our core listenership are out there in hospitality, restaurants, retail, financial services, and they're building teams every single day from a leadership perspective. So, from you as a high level leader, what makes up a great team?
So, fortunately, I've worked with a lot of hospitality. So, across the board, what really makes a great high performing team is everybody is moving in the same direction. And they're doing the same thing for the same output, which is ultimately to serve the client and to serve the company. And as long as those two are in balance and everyone is on the old Sun Tzu, spirit of the same ranks, right? Type process, that's usually what makes a very high performing team. With one caveat, the leader of that team has to be a leader. And as long as that leader is leading that team will then do what that leader is doing. So, if you have a complacent leader, the leader showing up late for meetings, for example, they're setting a standard for the whole team to do that. So then when we show up late for client appointments and clients are complaining, we go, man, not a big deal because the leader's doing this. And, so to me, it's about keeping that, I guess, that ubiquitous process going through to serve the mission of the client and the company. And I do say the client first before the company. It should be equal parts, but if we got to err, let's lean on the air of serving the client.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks forget that they've got that megaphone of leadership as a leader, and the example they set is so really important. I had one of my very first bosses more years ago than I can count now. His name was Mark, and he told me if you walked by it, you endorsed it, right? And that always stuck with me. Not walking by a problem, setting a good example, modeling the right behaviors. I think that goes a long way.
Well, I think it's everything. I mean, it's well encapsulated in what he's saying because I've gone into companies, for example, I was thinking of one when you were asking the question, and they had a sales management which was present, but they didn't train anybody. So it was like the sales team, there was about 80 people in the sales team, and they were all kind of doing whatever they needed to do to try to survive. And I asked them, I said, well, where's your training? And they said, well, we don't have it. I said, well, what's your sales management doing? They're like, I don't know. You know what I mean? And so I simply went in there and I said, okay, we're gonna train 4 days a week. And they all said, are you kidding me? That's never going to happen around here. And we did. We trained 4 days a week, and we really did a great job. And in 2 years, they literally went from 48 million to 110 million. And all I did was put processes, streamline systems in there, and make sure that the leadership now showed up for these things to set a new tone within the company. So I really know that it is the leader, the way the leader shows up consistently usually is the model for the rest of the organization.
No doubt. I spend a lot of time training frontline employees in hospitality. It's a big part of what I do, flying somewhere, going to a room, and we have really great training events. And I insist that as a part of that, the leaders sit in on that because
Yes.
employees notice, team members notice. And if they know that the leaders are sitting in on those sessions, they also know they're having leadership workshops that I'm hosting as a part of my time there. The employees often will perk up a little, go, okay, so my leaders are invested enough that they're coming in for a full day on their own and sitting in my 1 hour thing. That shows that commitment. So I totally get what you're saying about that commitment to the training piece. Um, so you talk a lot about. I was LinkedIn and website stalking you before the interview, right, to get a sense. And one of the things I saw was overcoming objections before you talk with potential customers. And
Right.
I thought that was outstanding because I think that ability to game plan, to role play, to look around corners, to be ready to overcome objections is so really important. Can you talk to our audience about how in their business can they overcome objections before they talk to their potential customers or at least be ready for them?
Yeah. So if you have a customer base already, the best source of information is from your previous clients and your current clients or those to be clients. And so we want to take stock in everything that's being said. And we can look back at what we lost, what we won, and we can say, okay, what were the objections when we lost? What are the objections when we won? How do they cross over? What are we not addressing? Maybe we address these things in the winning sale, but we failed to address these in the losing sale. So you can categorize all of these and then look at the frequency they're coming in. That will tell us the prioritization of where it's going to come from and when. So, for example, if somebody's getting, this is too expensive, it's like, man, it's just unaffordable. Then and they're hearing that say 90 times out of 100. Well, that is really a priority level one objection. So that should go right in the front. And we prioritize these down. Now, what we do with these objections is we head them off before they even become. And give you an example, Maytag used to do this when they were considered the number one, appliance, washing machine, let's say, right? They would walk through the door and they would say something like this: "Hey, we're from Maytag. We're not the cheapest, but we're the best." Right? And they would head it right off, right up front. And so people knew that if you were going to go to Maytag, it's like, in the hospitality industry, if you walk into a Ritz-Carlton, it's not going to be $50 a night. I mean, it's just simple, right? So they head off these objections, and anyone can do this by looking at the past and present. And then, if you don't have past clients, then what I would do is I'd find a sample audience that you're looking for, or even someone who may be associated with, can even be a competitor, and then see if you can get access to their people and then ask the same type of questions.
So really just doing some due diligence and kind of game planning and really seeking out to understand and reaching out to folks.
And then, yes, Tony, and then doing it, right? Because a lot of times people will do the research, but they won't. I've walked into people, I'm like, well, you got all this research. Why isn't it implemented? Oh, well, and so we've got to put it into play. And folks think, standard operating procedures, right? An objection handling process, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, I wrote a whole book on this subject of philosophy and, psychology of objections. And it's a process. And all objections they're all stemming from fear, whether tiny fear or large fear, it all comes from there. So once we understand what that is, we can expertly head that off, not only just in our communication, but we can head it off in our marketing. We can head it off in our, our PR, anything that is going to get public exposure where people look at it to build confidence versus fear in your brand is something you want to do up front.
So, what are some of those top revenue growth tactics that folks should be implementing right now? Maybe something you use as a part of your sales strategy program, that kind of thing. If you were going to share some high level tips for our audience who run the gamut from small business to Fortune 200s who listen, what advice would you give them to grow their revenue?
First thing out of the gate is make sure they're talking to the right buyer,
Okay.
right? And I know that's not a tactic, but it's the truth, right? And I just read this recently and I was shocked at how I knew this was a problem, like, because it is with most companies I talk with. But Harvard, Wharton School of Business, and some other prestigious, places did this study, and they found and concluded that 97% of people who are out there selling, whether it's a company or an individual seller, does not know in part or in full their ideal right fit buyer. And I was like, wow, I knew it was a big problem because I've experienced this with clientele and even in our businesses when we didn't understand. So when you don't understand your ideal right fit buyer, your messaging is going to be off. Thus your marketing will be off. Thus your prospecting will be off. All of these things are off. So I always tell people start there. Then once you get that cleared up, then it's really, business is so simple, Tony, from a sales perspective, especially until you add people. And then it starts to get a little complicated, right? But it's so simple. It's like money in, money out equals something, right? So how do we bring the money in to make it bigger than the money out? Massive prospecting. So my challenge to everybody would be, I want you to find 6 ways over the next 12 months, just new ways that you can test to start bringing in by either going outbound or either inbound, new ways to bring in prospects so that you can focus on this. And one of the things for salespeople, you mentioned you had people on here or small businesses as well. I call it XXY. So take X, X, and Y. So X1 is one way you're reaching out. X2 is another way you're reaching out. And Y is follow-up. So just take that methodology. And if you want it, you got 20 reach outs a day by one method, 20 reach out days by another method, and then 20 follow-ups. And if you follow that structure, what will happen is you will have so many prospects coming through the door. And if you know who you're supposed to be talking to, the ideal right fit buyer, that eventually that 20-20-20 will become more like 2-45. And so you're following up with a lot more people, but you're still bringing the business through. Because the one thing that that if people could take away from this conversation is the master prospector will always outsell the master closer. Always outsell.
Why is that? Is that a numbers game or a fit game or both?
It's a more of a fit game when you have the ideal right fit buyer. So you know who is the apex decision maker. If you're talking to that person all the time, and then you're cranking numbers up to those people on a consistent basis, we're always going to outsell the master closer because you could have the greatest closing skills in the world, but if we're talking to the wrong potential buyer or our messaging is off, we have all these skill sets to be able to handle a conversation, but they're getting to the table thinking they're buying, I don't know, picket fencing, and we're selling sword lessons, but it's still called fencing, right? The game will be off. And I learned this early on in my sales career because, frankly, I never thought I was really a great salesperson, but I was really, really great at prospecting. And so when you prospect, you have an abundance of qualified sales ready leads. And then so when you're talking to sales ready leads, they're far more down the line than talking to, say, somebody who would just generate a lead or a marketing qualified lead. So the quality of that conversation is different. And so you don't need the to be the best closer in the world. Now, if you are the master prospector and the master closer, you'll outsell everyone.
Sure.
Right. And I want people to really understand that point. There is one other part in the why, though, the follow-up. We must have follow-up in the process. Clearly, people like I'm a kind of an optimization guy, so I read stats all the time. And I came across one the other day that really kind of stepped me back. The average prospect now is expecting a minimum of 5 follow-ups. Minimum.
Yeah.
But over half the people never follow up more than one time. So what's crazy about that is if you follow up once, twice, 3 times, but not 5 times, they're expecting that. Then your competitor makes a cold call on top of that. They're going to start talking to your competitor, but you as the primary have already prepped the competitor to take your sale because they're getting closer and closer and closer to that introduction of here's my check. So we want to continue to keep playing that. And in those 5 follow-ups, this was the amazing part, Tony. 3 of them, they expect a verbal conversation. So many people are afraid or reluctant to pick up the phone today that if they just did that, they would they would separate themselves from the pack right then and there. And because we are human beings and we still want to communicate with people, if the pandemic never taught anybody anything but that, I mean, people were clamoring for connection through the process. We still want that because it's just a human need that we have. We like to do things like you and I are doing right now, talk to one another. I can see your facial movements, your body movements, you can see mine, and it just has a different connection than a text or an email. And it's hard to misconstrue, this type of communication, but it's super easy in an email to think, gee, did that mean this or did that mean that? Right. So, but pick up the phone, call people, prospect more, get 6 new ways going in the business. Out of all 6, they may all work, they may not, but look, start rating them A's and B's. Try to get A's and B's. If you end up with 3 new ways over a year's period of time, or even 6 months, if you can do it in that, watch what happens to your numbers, and the companies will stop seeing up and down cycles if they're following like the XXY method, because what happens is you have a consistent push. So if you're having unpredictable revenue in your sales team, especially, it's usually around the prospecting aspect or the targeting because the messaging's off.
Great stuff in there, folks. Remember, it's still okay to make a phone call. That's a great piece because my Gen X is showing I do love a good phone call. So I saw your article on aligning marketing and sales. I think
Yes.
that's wonderful. I love it when different parts of an organization, and we have a lot of folks who listen from large companies, and so there's always silos, there's always misconnections, things like that. So, what is most important, or why is it most important? I guess I should ask, and how do you get that alignment between sales and marketing?
Okay, two different questions. First one's easy to answer. You have a unified message that's going through the process, right? So I'll give you because you got hospitality. I'm a diamond member with Hilton and some other because I used to fly and be in hotels a lot. And so one time Hilton had recently changed their breakfast policy. So I used to take my family of 4. I'd go to a Hilton because I was a diamond member. All 4 of us would get breakfast. And so they changed the policy. And this was I would say it's more of a marketing change. They put out some material that was a little ambiguous, quite frankly. It was just like, if you go to a Hilton Garden Inn, they give you this on a dollar. If you go to a DoubleTree, they give you this. If you go to, the higher level ones, you'll get this. And everybody was getting confused in the beginning on this process. So I'd show up at Hilton Garden Inn and it'd be like breakfast for four. Then I'd go to another Hilton Garden Inn. It'd be like, no, we only cover two people and we only give $10 a day. It's like, well, your company policy says $12 for two people, right? So it was massive confusion in the traveling to the point where I stopped like going to Hilton for a while because I have other status with other places. So without sales and marketing being aligned, that's an example, a small example of what can happen, but that could be a big, big problem because, let's say that I'm one of, I don't know, 600,000 people who are experiencing this on a hospitality brand. A certain percentage of them take to social media and they start just like, this policy is awful and this is, and it just gets going. So that's now how. Actually, how's pretty simple, Tony. You get the head of marketing and the head of sales together. Let's say you're the CEO of the company and you say these words, no matter who you are as the CEO. You two are going to work together in a unified format. And I don't care how it happens, but you're going to figure it out. And this needs to happen by tomorrow morning at 9:00. Come back to me and tell me how you're going to do it. Right? It's really that simple. Now, of course, there'll be people like, nah, I don't want to, whatever. But the reality is it's got to come from the top down. And it's got to be a directive. It's not even an option today. Because now, as we are post-pandemic, marketing has taken on a larger role in sales. See, the old days, they used to look at it as divisionary lines. We in marketing do this. Well, advertising's separate than the direct mail division. So and they would do all of that stuff and they would all be fragmented. And then when it came to sales, marketers looked at sales as these lazy people who make way too much money and we work really hard. Well, sales would look at marketing and go, I don't need your marketing crap. I really don't. I'm calling out on people all the time. And they're looking at me as the expert channel. And so there was this divisionary process of, going back and forth. But now, internet flattened that. Now, before they even get to talk to a salespeople on a major corporate agenda, they're picking the salespeople they want to have come in from whatever company many times because they've done so much information gathering. They know more about it than sometimes even the sales channel knows about it. And if you want proof, folks, just go online and next time you want to buy an automobile, you'll find everything. And I did this one time, Tony, when I just bought a vehicle for my wife. I went down and I said, hey, does this XL version, whatever it was, does this come with the heated seats and the cooling seats and the heated steering wheel? And the gentleman said to me, he goes, I have no idea. Right? So back in the day when he had to be the expert of the sales channel, that was like you had to know.
Right.
And he should have known now. But I, as the consumer, could see all of this information. So we make buying decisions a little bit differently. We used to, as value perception, it used to go like value, equaled what they deemed as value. And then it had a category down, right? And service was really high. And convenience was really low on the totem pole, if you will, of trajectory. But now convenience has gone very high because people have that information. So that's the key, to get them together, smack some heads around, not literally, folks, and just get them to cooperate.
Fantastic. That alignment's so crucial. Don't let silos mess up a good thing, folks. And folks, if you are loving this episode, and I'm sure you are, head on down, leave 5 stars, say something nice, share it out with your friends, help keep Customer Service Academy one of the top podcasts in the world. And if you want the proof of that, check out FeedSpot this month. We are featured in both the customer service and customer experience categories in the top 10. Thank you so much for FeedSpot for calling us out for that. This has been fantastic so far, but Doug, are you ready for the lightning round?
Uh-oh. Sure.
All right. It's always good when we start off with uh-oh, folks. So 5 quick questions, 5 quick thoughts to get to know you as a person just a little bit better.
Okay.
So it sounds like from your bio that music is a big part of your life. What are your favorites to write or play or mess around with when you think about genres? Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, rock still. It's it's I used to grow up on ballads, quite frankly, because I used to write a lot of them. And then one day, I don't know, Aerosmith actually. I listened to Aerosmith and then Led Zeppelin in one day, and I was like, yeah, this is a great thing. And I just kind of I gravitated toward that. So I still write, music. And but as I get older too, because like I'm 63, so as I get older, the young kids are like, who's the Beatles or who's the,
Sure. As
right?
Billy Joel said, it's still rock and roll to me, folks.
That's right.
Um, what brand out there do you think gives the best customer service right now?
Oh, from a customer service point, uh, I would actually say GoDaddy, and I'll
Okay.
tell you why. Um, One of the things that people don't think about is customer service as a sales channel. And so when you align marketing and sales, you got to align customer service as well. GoDaddy's done an amazing job at that. You cannot, as a consumer, I don't know anybody who can go on a GoDaddy call and not buy something else, and feel good about it. And so I would say GoDaddy does an amazing job at it.
Great. Favorite food?
Thai food.
Love Thai food. Most interesting job you've ever had?
Oh, most interesting job I ever had. I would say that's a tough one. I would say on the most interesting job I ever had, probably when I took over the divisions for, so I worked for a man named Chet Holmes and Tony Robbins, and I was their president of training and sales. And I think that was probably the most interesting job had ever had, because it was so, firstly, I believed in it so much, but it was just so, I had to run everything. And it was just, it was good prep to continue to grow larger businesses. Because up until that point on my own, I had only grown maybe seven-figure companies, getting close to eight. But now it's like, okay, how do we grow eight, nine, 10, and on? So it was a good learning curve for me.
And finally, to wrap us up, what's the best thing you've read recently?
I keep rereading this book over and over, so I'm gonna. There's two. One is the book by Ruiz is the last name. It was originally called The Four Agreements. Now it's called The Five Agreements. And there's another one that I read consistently. It's called Inner Voice by Russ Whitney, and they're both personal business growth books. And I do that because if we can't separate the two, right? There's never been a business problem out there without a people problem, right? So I'm constantly looking at the internal workings of how I work as well as how other people work. And it's really helpful to the work I do, because we could spot, patterns and help people reframe the associations to those uh, patterns they're giving meaning to that they don't even want to give meaning to. And so people become far less reactive.
Well, this has been fantastic, Doug. Thank you so much for being on today. How can people get in touch to learn more about you and what you do and CEO strategies and the whole bit?
Yeah, they can reach out to me. I mean, if they want to learn more about me personally, my LinkedIn is Doug Brown 123. They can type in Doug C. Brown revenue growth. I'll come up on the top 8 or 10 pages on that thing. And if they want to reach out directly, they could just reach out to Doug at ceosalesstrategies.com. And I have a couple of people who watch my email, but I will answer. And if they have a question or something came up like, oh man, you were talking about this on, Tony's podcast, then that's the best route to do. We run master classes twice a month that are, pro bono master classes. We run them on unpredictable growth, making unpredictable revenue growth predictable. We run them on what we call sales leaks. So this here's a challenge in your process, and if you fix this leak, then you'll actually see a bump in revenue pretty quickly.
Fantastic. And folks, we will leave that in the show notes. If you scroll on down, you'll be down there leaving 5 stars anyway. So you might as well go ahead and click on over. I will put all of those links in the show notes for this. But Doug, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Tony, thanks for having me here. As I said in the beginning, I'm very grateful. I still am. So thank you.
Absolutely. And so, folks, that is our show. Remember, we are still in the middle of the Great Service Comeback. If you want to learn more about it, check out Doug's great links in the show notes or head on over to Amazon.com and check out my book, Together We Serve by Tony Johnson, on paperback, digital, or audiobook. Buy a copy for yourself or your team today. But until next time, I've been Tony Johnson, your customer experience strategist and trainer, reminding you to keep your customers at the center of everything you do, because that's where the most amazing things are possible. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will talk to you next week.
This has been Customer Service Academy Radio with Tony Johnson. Tony is available to speak at your event, meeting, or workshop. Have a powerful customer-focused day.